I believe that we are live now. And if so, we still have things loading, but if anybody's there in the chat, please give us a thumbs up or some type of awesome emoji and let us know if this thing is live.
Okay.
And actually, can you guys see anything? It's live on my side too.
I can't, I'm not even on it because I know it's just going to, like, I'm going to get some existential anxiety if I see myself Infinite 3 seconds echo behind myself.
I'm not on it either.
Absolutely. All right. Well, my screen is almost loaded. Actually, I'll mute it so that way we don't get surprises. Oh wait, no, I can't do that because I need to hear you guys. Well, yeah, hey there, everybody. I'm just gonna assume that it's going because pretty sure that it is. On today's live, I'm so excited to be able to be joined by Dylan, the founder of Kylan, as well as Sam, the CEO. We've had so much going on in the background, and today are so excited to announce a multitude of updates, changes, as well as plans for moving forward into the near future. So I want to start off with, well, I guess, Sam, let's start off. I know that people have been ecstatic to be able to see what you and the team have been working on in the background.
Yeah, of course. Right. So those of you who've been kind of active in the tech channel, it's actually quite nice to see because that channel was quiet for so long. And then suddenly when we get more activity with the community, we've been getting people involved with initially our testnet. Shout out to all the people who've done, or there's some work to get their collators out. It was actually quite nice to see so many people joining the network. And because of that, we were able to quickly validate whether or not our functionality to save data into the data warehouse, to query data from the data warehouse is possible, while people getting awarded the correct amount of fees. It's actually very exciting to see. So we've never actually, I don't think we've ever done a demo of what's happening. So let me share my screen.
Yeah, here it should be good to go.
So you can see here, right, that we've got. So if I, for example, like issue a query request, right, which is just loading. It's a bit slow, but it's loading. Right. So if I try and query data, and I want to query some price feeding data, right? Oh. Right. So that table has already been saved into a data warehouse by an account called Kylan Kusama. Now, because someone queried that data set, we would automatically see that that account gets a portion of the fees for that particular query, and it gets withdrawn from the Kylan Rococo account. And eventually you'll get a read from data warehouse, which is where data is being read back to the Kylan Rococo account. And this is price feeding data that was originally submitted from the Kylan Kusama account. You see here, read from data warehouse, and this is the pricing data. And we've got things like block number and the timestamp, so you can able to then go into the block and find out exactly when it was read. So for example, that was read at 1235. So if you go and jump into the 1235 block, you'll see all the information, including the hash that was given. So yeah, so this is basically our V0 of the warehouse. This is actually running right now on West End. This is the Pichu runtime. It's running on West End. So you know, I'm pretty proud of that. So if you go here, and can I open up a new tab? No, I can't. I'll just use the same tab. But if you then go into West End, you'll be able to see this exact runtime we were seeing. All that interaction that we just did is happening on the Kusama West End network. And that tells us that we are far more ready for a launch on Kusama than we were when we were doing things on Cha-Cha-Cha. But because our Cha-Cha-Cha is very similar to Rococo, this is actually very similar to Kusama. So it's given us a lot of confidence. Apart from that, we've got these lovely dashboards showing us exactly what's happening on West End. So you can see that we're producing
cool.
blocks every 13 seconds. This is kind of like a monitoring central, right? So these in traditional IT organizations, you'll see this in screens all over the office to let people know when something's gone wrong, and you know how healthy is the overall system. There's just so much here. I don't want to go through each and every one of it, but what's this is essentially telling us is the overall health of the network. And hopefully that has not loaded yet. All right, let's try let's try one from Parity. Hopefully that loads faster. Maybe. There you go. So if you go into Parachains here, there you go. We've got P22112. That's us. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And you can see we're producing blocks there. So that's it from me, from the demo's perspective.
You know,
back to you,
Sam. I'm curious because there was, I remember not too long ago, I think maybe even a couple of weeks, weren't we seeing like a 40-second block time there? I noticed that we got that shaved down quite a bit.
It was, we were doing, and that was also thanks to the community, right? So when the community started running collators, I think at some point we were up to like 25 or 30 nodes running in the network. And that we quickly were able to identify, hang on, our block time target should be like 12 or 13 seconds. It's up to 40 and 50, there's something wrong. And that only happened when we launched at that significant scale. And we were able to get down the block time from like 45 seconds to about 12 or 13 seconds, which should be the healthy part. And the monitoring dashboard was able to show us this, right? It was big red sign saying, you're taking too long to produce blocks. And yeah, we resolved that. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Awesome.
That's awesome. I'm super proud of what you guys have done. I know it's been great watching, getting to know each of the developers and seeing the addition that they provided. Sam, now I think for the next things, we've got a pretty long list. I'm just going to knock everything out and dial in, and we'll have you share some more in a moment. But Sam, I know I don't want to share the whole cat and let the whole cat out of the bag, but you had some news about some steps, some things that are coming up in the future for you personally. I think now might be a good time to share.
Yeah, so I joined Kylins in May, although I've been part of like the looking at the code and was always an active member of the community. I think since, it feels like a long time ago, but really, I think I got on board with the Kylin community around January. So I was very much involved with the community and driving the let's hear everything the community has to say. And Kusama was a good example of that, right? Because we're seeing the ecosystem, and both Dylan and myself, our vision was always to get Kylin to become a blue chip. And when I look back into everything we've done over the past 4 or 5 months, like we've grown so much, not only in terms of actually getting working code out, but recognition from Parity's side that we are actually now a serious project, doing innovations that have not been done before. On the Polkadot ecosystem, it's just been an amazing journey. And now as we're ramping up towards a launch, I realized that it's been quite an intense 4 or 5 months. And as someone who recently got blessed with a new daughter, it's become a bit too much. The role of being a CEO, it's become far too much work handling, and I feel like I've moved away from the thing I used to love to do, which is writing code and fixing technical problems. And because of that, I've kind of decided to take like a step back and hand over the reins to you, Andy, because you've been amazing with time and dedication to really communicate with the community and letting us know. You've been that exact thing I've been trying to push for, which is getting transparency and getting the community involved into everything we do. Every single decision we make now, we always think, okay, what would the community think, and what would shall we try and communicate this decision or the thoughts of this decision? And I'm seeing that, and I'm pretty proud of where we are now, and I think you'd be the perfect person to do it. And that's kind of why I've decided to take a step back. Nothing's going to change day to day, though. I'm still committed to launching us on Kusama, potentially as well on Polkadot. It's just that I'm going to do less day to day work with partners and setting up communications with different partners, for example, and I'm focusing purely on building out the product.
Yeah,
that's yeah. I mean, sorry, can I chime in?
Please.
So yeah, like I think it's worth highlighting just a few things. Number one is that Sam has done something that is, pretty special. So it's not like, so this is what Sam has done is a little different than just like jumping on to, like creating an NFT marketplace, right? Like he's working in an area of technology that is itself new, and it would be akin to like building. It would be akin to like building, a rocket ship to, we're not, but rather than a satellite, right? Like if that maybe it's a bad analogy, but my point is this: is that Sam has been working on something that not many people even have the technical, intellectual, and grit, right, bandwidth to accomplish. And so, I think that when we were at sort of a Rubicon for Kylan in terms of our ability to deliver on the vision, right, the technical architecture. And we had gotten the foundation, we'd gotten our web grant and everything like that. And then for I think Sam's we'll look back in like a couple of years, I think, and realize that like if it wasn't for Sam, like this project would have been I don't want to say like toast or anything. I think we're very resilient, but his contribution to the project is fundamental and significant. And so I think that, he deserves a round of applause, whether it's virtual, we can do some right here, from ourselves and from the community. And I know that he's going to be an ongoing ombudsman and, for community ideals. And so he's going to remain, I think, a part of the key strategic decision-making, at least by proxy, as we go on. And, challenges are going to be part of every project's origin story and continuing story. And, it was a challenge perhaps to the project that we were like, oh, Sam, we want to keep you on. And I hope everyone appreciates my candor here. But I totally also understand that there are an enormous amount of personal factors and vagaries that come into the situation that mean you got to do what's ultimately the most valuable thing for you, which hopefully is like with respect to your closest relationships, and if those are in balance.
Yeah.
And so I absolutely respect Sam's decision to like maybe understand where he's got to find balance. And I was asked this once by somebody, and I actually didn't mean for it to be clever, but I realized it was, which somebody said like, what's your greatest strength? And I'm like, and without missing a beat, I'm like, knowing what my weaknesses are, right? And this is true, right? So, and they're like, oh my God, what a good answer. And I'm like, yeah, that was. And so, but it's true, right? And so my weakness, obviously, was I'm okay with architecture, leading projects from 0 to 1. And this is a good segue because we'll talk about Andy, right? And Andy's role going forward is this next phase of Kylan, in my opinion, right? Which is, Sam, got us, and I got us from like 0 to kind of 1. We're at kind of this MVP stage. And I really look forward to Andy's set of skills that complement, and strengths that complement my own weaknesses, perhaps in going from 1 to 100. I'm not as good at that, perhaps. And I really look forward to how he's going to galvanize the project and galvanize the community. And I think he has a set of skills that are more attuned to scaling than just going from 0 to 1. Although he's also extremely creative and hardworking. I don't want to diminish you there, but I think that he's just extremely organized, on point, and I look forward to seeing what he can do in terms of leading the project. And that's it. Sorry, I talked a lot, but that's all I got to say.
That was perfect. That's perfect. Thank you for the kind words. And yeah, Sam, I'm so excited for everything that you've done with us, and I can only imagine where your heart and mind may set next and what you build. But it's something that, I mean, I'm just selfishly sad that I won't be actually engineering with you as I'm learning the code. But it's something where I can't thank you enough, not only for the work that you've done, but the standards that you've left with our developers and our team, being able to have a system that's strong, that's ready to grow, because you had helped to architect and build things in a way that the baton can be passed, and we can continue to make sure that that is the case as we not only are onboarding the new team of developers that we're already, of course, starting to talk and bring people together, but we've also got an additional team that will be able to help us as we grow and expand, that we are exploring options with. So Sam, it's something that you saw the vision early on, and I can say with directness, of course, Dylan's personality is what first really made me take a close look at this, and getting to know Bull Sander in the community, watching as a lurker and seeing the way that, wow, people are so consistent and honest and genuine here. I think I even went in at some point and was talking about something random, and it was like, it was an amazing environment. And then to see your growth going from the community lead all the way up to the CEO of the company, I thought surely this is a place that if someone can add value, they can make it. And anyway, but I know that's long, but it's what I've seen. So anyways, everybody, I know that you came here for some updates, and we actually have a lot more cool stuff going on. And we can blast these out, because it's something where part of what we'll be looking at doing is setting up more of an open door, so to speak, a way that we can communicate with the community. We want to hear everybody's ideas, everybody's thoughts, because going live on PeachU isn't just about being able to show some cool dashboards of what we've done in our palettes, which are already pretty awesome, but there's a lot of partners that are looking for support, that have just unfathomable amounts of data to be queried and indexed and to create different interesting applications. So it's something where there's opportunities here. And we want to be able to build that up and get PeachU launched on the right track. And part of the news we have available is we passed the latest milestone to be able to move on to the next step. So as of now, it's just a couple of bits and bobs to be able to figure out exactly what is the best way to deploy. Yet it's something where we are not only just well ahead of schedule, we're in the final sets of being able to announce when we'll be doing the Parachain auction for PeachU. On top of that, we hear everybody's questions about an exchange listing, and I just want everybody to know that it does not fall on deaf ears. It's something where I want to just kind of share a moment the thought process behind how we see exchange listings, the reason why we're so focused on a tier 1 exchange first. It's something where, as a data validation company, we recognize how important it is that we are securing and protecting people's data as much as possible. And it's why it's something where we can't just suggest any exchange to be going with, and it's why we want as a standard to go with something quality. On top of that, it is price. It's a money thing. We look at it as we've been given an amount of capital to build an MVP, to create a network that's able to provide a service, and there's a certain level of quality it has to have. And it's something where, at the cost of multiple blockchain developers, as a result of NDA, I can't describe, but it's just hard to substantiate potentially setting the project development back in exchange for a little bit more liquidity on a product that isn't yet deployed. So I share this with everybody because while that is the case, we do have plans to launch something as soon as possible. And the Parachain launch is one of those major steps that exchange like to be able to see, so we are able to have more flexible options. On top of that, it's something where we understand that Uniswap is not the most, it's not a, no one enjoys paying $200 fees when they're looking to be able to make a move. At the same time, ThorSwap has significantly cheaper fees, and we realize we can probably do more to be able to help encourage people to know how to use the platform and how to be able to acquire Kylan from there. So it's something that we're going to be working on that. So that's a couple of details around exchange listings, as well as some, I guess, where we're going with the Parachain launch. I guess, Dylan, I got a couple other things in mind, but I wanted to see from your perspective, what else would you like to share at this stage while we have it?
I want to say
yes,
two
yeah,
things.
please.
So the first thing is what we've already just like started doing is trying to grow a community of developers, right, to try and push the ecosystem, because the entire Polkadot ecosystem requires more Substrate developers. So a bunch of people from the community already started. If you want to learn Substrate and if you want to get involved with Kylan, we're willing to help you learn the code base, right? And another thing that we wanted to share was the crowd loans, right? The milestone Andy was talking about, right, was the audit. It was more of a conversation with Parity to try and understand what should be in place before we launch our crowd loan. And today we basically got an okay saying, okay, you have everything in place. You've got distributed collators. We've got about 15 or 20 that'll be ready for Kusama. And we've got alerting and dashboards, which I earlier shared. What's really cool is now Kusama is doing ongoing auctions, right? It's not a matter of waiting. So although the official line is still Q1, we are much more confident of launching before the end of the year. I am personally, just because everything's in place now. The only thing that we need to add right now is benchmarking in case, you know, things slow down. But again, from a code perspective, it already works on West End, so we are very confident we can launch on Kusama. There'll be more information around that sooner or later. And the last bit, which is around the tokenomics of Pichu, we talked about. I mean, I mentioned this in the official channel, but we're not doing monthly vesting anymore. We're not doing, a certain date everyone gets their tokens unlocked. No, it's going to be a linear unlock, and we'll update the documentation. But essentially, what it means is if you contribute with KSM to Pichu, you'll be able to claim your rewards at any time on every block. It's vested, so you'll get the full reward by this block number on Kusama, but you can choose to claim it every 6 seconds if you want to pay the fees every 6 seconds, because you've got to pay a fee every time you claim. But the point is you can claim whenever. There'll be no more monthly dumping every month on the 5th. It's done. These are things that the community said and we heard and we wanted to implement for the launch. The same launch will happen for Polkadot. It'll be the same functionality where you can claim whenever. What we want to do next is, after launch, is trying to understand if we can do the same for the KYL holders. Can we give them the ability to claim their KYL via every single block? So again, it's not every month, but we need to figure out how that could be done when we link the ERC20 wallet addresses. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we hear you. Everything you mentioned on the chat, when you tag the ambassadors, whether it's Lady Steve or Sander, they forward this information to us and we hear you. And we are actively trying, myself and the entire team are trying our best to implement all your feedbacks and all your ideas into our every single thing we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also worth talking just a bit about Substrate developers and Substrate development ecosystem. So I kind of look at it, just if there's anybody out there listening who is either interested in coding or has some background in maybe another language, like you can kind of think about Substrate development in a similar way to Solidity development in 2016, we'll say. So anybody who was a Solidity developer in 2016 and then was like basically getting enough skills within a year to start launching, things like ICO, smart contracts, needless to say, they were doing well. So, like the big, we're taking a bet, we're taking a position on Polkadot, right, as Kylan, and on Substrate. Like that's goes without saying, and we've done it from the very beginning, even before Polkadot was in fashion. So you know, we analyzed where developer interest was going, and at the time it was like, oh, there's some going to Cosmos at the time, but we really looked deeply into Polkadot, and we're like, all this, you know, a lot of people are heading toward Polkadot. The reason why is because it does represent a, you know, a certain amount of technical innovation, right? And anyway, long story short is I just want to say, you know, it's important right now for people who have talent to start thinking about where they want to put that talent with respect to coding. And we're more, like Sam said, you know, we're part of us being successful, the entire ecosystem, is to like engender that talent and to grow that talent in Substrate developer circles, right? And there's just not enough. There's more demand than there is supply of talent right now. Fortunately, you know, we've been able to figure out and put together a game plan to have enough technical talent, but we want to grow that even more, right? Because there's going to be a ton of things that need to be built out, obviously within Kylan, but in other projects too. So we're happy to be able to, you know, be a part of that. And we've got a or part of that 10 million fund is to fund ecosystem development, including, you know, developer talent. And I think we have some other ideas in the pipeline as well about how we can kind of inculcate, you know, that kind of talent and get that kickstarted a little bit more. So just want to like talk about that a little bit, and that's it on my end for that. And
it's a great segue.
Yeah,
perfect, because it's, you know, talking about talent and Substrate in general being so new, it's something where Kylan comes in as the data solution, the data provider, because it's something that anybody is able to now, as Pichu is, you know, being scheduled for launch soon. Once that's launched, it provides people the ability to monetize their applications and their data and whatever a person may find interesting. You know, there's been so much open source research done, especially post C19 here in 2020. People have learned that there's value in data. And well, by adding an entire new layer there, we think there's a lot of cool stuff. And I guess the announcements that you can be looking forward to over the course of the rest of this week, because this webinar will be going on for 3 hours, and we want to make sure we have some time to do a little bit of Q&A and answer a few questions. I know the ambassadors collected a few, and then Bullsander, if you will please collect a few questions. Let's just say like 3 of them from the community here actively. We can knock those out.
And I can fill this. I can fill this space while you with some general musings. Because I wanted to jump in and just say regarding Polkadot. So you know, it's like, look at Solana, and this is all due respect to these other like L1s. Like look at Solana, look at Polygon. I mean, Gavin has talked about this. There's this real sacrifice of decentralization for speed or for some sort of other efficiency, right? And I think you have to take a very strategic long-term mindset in this. So sure, there could be a market downturn, whatever. Eventually the market is going to go back up, and eventually the regulators are going to also catch up. And if there's any centrality to the architecture of these L1s that they're on, and Gavin has highlighted this, you know, that could be like a non-starter for these projects. So I think it's something to carefully consider. There's like 2 projects in the world right now that have not made this sacrifice of decentralization for scale, right? Or the ability to scale or some other efficiency. And there's Ethereum 2, which isn't even out yet. And well, not really. And Polkadot. So I think it's very wise to consider, you know, like we're extremely long-term and strategic about why we've chosen Substrate and Polkadot to build on, because it's literally the best like layers. It's not even an L1, it's layer 0. So I think people have to like really consider that in view of like, oh, Solana's going crazy. Like, I'm sorry, but you know what? Like, all sorts of things went crazy in 2018, and are they still around here in 2021? I think, sorry to be so emphatic about it, but like, I really want to emphasize this because I think it gets lost in the noise. And yeah, that's it. So have we found any questions?
Yeah, well, it's say I got a couple of them coming up, and just so that everybody knows what to expect for the rest of this week, is we'll be launching a series of I guess not edutainment, you called it, breakdowns of different aspects. So we've got Parachains part 2 and 3 and 4 almost scheduled out, and we'll be launching a ton of stuff. So any ideas that you guys might be thinking of, please drop them into the chats, and our ambassadors will share that in so we can break that all down. And yeah, the next things we'll be talking about the actual use case opportunities of PGU and exactly how everyone can participate with that and where we see that takes us moving towards the actual Kylan launch. So anyways, we'll drop those videos here later on, and I've got a handful of questions from Bull Sander. All right, so let's see.
Oh,
Sam,
and we should. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say we should just. I'm so sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, just so we don't lose it, we're expanding. I know there's been a ton of talk in the community about expanding the marketing of Kylan. So I think it's worth discussing that we're expanding the actual human capital and team, and we're having a huge push over the next. I'll leave that to you though. At some point, just make sure we remember it.
I'll knock that out and give a little bit of backstory. No, great point. I nearly forgot a little bit of backstory about what we're planning ahead for the marketing, because for sure we hear the messages, and well, we're very excited for this push. So Sam, got a question. Where will we need to lock our Kylan for the lock drop? Oh, and you unmute, my friend.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Okay, so with the lock drop, we're going to build a smart contract on ERC20 to lock your KYL. And what we also want to do is people who lock their smart contract to be eligible for both holders of KYL, but also it's 11%, I think 6% or 5% of holding your, I can't remember, was it stake and rewards, Dylan? But in general, it was just under 11%, I think. But yeah, we'll be developing that. What our goal right now is to get the launch out, and as well as rewarding the contributors. As soon as the crowd loan itself is out, I think that's when what we will start working on identifying the best strategy to reward KYL holders. We've also received feedback on should we, I think this came from a few people, but I think the last person to tell me about it was Juan, who's a very, very highly valuable person in the community, basically.
We appreciate you, Juan.
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. But the idea of getting rewarded a native Pichu and native KYL rather than an ERC20 drop. And I think we're really considering that as well now, because assuming the launch on Pichu goes really well, which I hope it will be, it also validates that we can deploy the same runtime, the Pichu runtime, but in Kylan to DOT. And if that's the case, then we don't have to wait like a dual month's work on trying to identify, okay, let's send the KYL holders ERC20 tokens. Let's just get their addresses, build a DApp to link their Polkadot.js wallet and give them a native DOT token and a native Kusama token being Pichu.
Makes a whole lot of sense. Great breakdown. That was way better than what I was thinking. Now, this question comes in, Dylan, maybe a good one for yourself. Will we get a different proportion of Kylan? Like, will it change month to month? So if a person kind of goes in, goes out, how would this work? Is now that we're doing this block to block system?
That's a good question. I can't remember how we designed it. In fact, Sam, So I'm just trying to think. It's proportionally though to the Kylan. So I assume that the proportion would remain the same within the function.
Yeah, so we
I
want
don't think there's, yeah, I don't think there
Sorry,
would
go
be
ahead.
any like, no, I was just going to say it would be relative to the amount of KYL. That you
So exactly. So we wanted a strategy that not only rewards existing KYL holders, but new people coming in, new supporters of the project. So we want to, our initial goal at the moment is to take multiple snapshots, and every single snapshot will be able to identify who the new holders are, who the existing holders are. Existing holders will just be getting the same reward throughout for each and every snapshot, but the new snapshot is identified to disqualify people who dump, right, and to qualify the new holders. So if you just hold on to your token, then you're eligible for the full reward. If you dump the reward as soon as you get the first unlock, then you're not going to be eligible for the future rewards.
Oh, sounds like good inspiration to hold on to Kylan.
Yeah, that's by design.
So this is I know Pichu is the canary network of Kylan, but will the partnerships that Kylan already have be using Pichu as well? Yeah, I can probably answer this question. It will depend on the partner. So right now, the majority of our partners are actually built on Ethereum. So it's something where there's still some pieces to put together to connect there because we're not even on Kusama yet. So the sequence of how it would go is going from the Kusama native projects, because we'll be able to work with them directly through Pichu. Once we launch on Polkadot through Kylan, that will expand our reach to be able to connect with anyone from there. And then there is a bridge that we're working on to interoperate between the two. And then on top of that, we'll be building the functionality. So that way, then we can connect with the ETH projects. There's just a little bit more work to do before we can get there. So we'll be sequencing it appropriately. All right, now, let's see. Yep, AMA, I mean, not AMA, listings. We did discuss that earlier on. We're talking to people and we are making sure that we can get to Parachain and through Parachain as a top priority. And then we're shooting for a tier 1. We think that's the best way, the safest way to be going. And on top of that, until we have a working product, it just doesn't make sense to put resourcing that can go into technical development into marketing essentially that doesn't have the greatest return. ThorSwap does have much cheaper fees than Uniswap. And when we talk to the team on how can we help people, because we've been there too on $50, $200 fees, ThorSwap's a great solution. And we realized that we could perhaps make some more support on how to use that.
I just wanted to say something around exchanges, right? Now, if our community takes a step back and look at all the exchanges that are currently supporting Polkadot, like Binance, Kraken, all the tier 1, every exchange that you can think of that is pretty good, is supporting options, right? So they're already going to be building the infrastructure required for their holders in the exchange to say, look, I want to support this particular loan, or I want to support this particular project. Now, every single project that is launching a crowd loan has incentives, right? If you give us your DOT, if you give us your KSM, we're going to reward you with our token. Now, all these exchanges will have to automatically build the infrastructure to reward their users passing over their DOT and KSM. So for example, if I'm a user, if I'm going to support Akala or Kylan or Moonbeam on Binance as an example, I'm going to use my DOT tokens on Binance to support Moonbeam, and then I'm expecting Glimmer back. So because of that, all these exchanges need to build the infrastructure to support that. And that means, I'm speculating here, but that means they already have the infrastructure in place to list us, right? So everyone's saying when tier 1, or when exchange. Really, it should be like when options. When are you launching? Because once you launch, once the parachain's running, the conversation with exchanges becomes so much easier. They've already got a crowd loan infrastructure in place, and listing becomes extremely simple. That's all I wanted to add to that.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thank you. And gives a little bit of a peek behind the scenes. And so, Dylan, I think this will be a fun one for you. I know people will hear me. Actually, no, I'll take this next one, and then I got a fun one for you. Question is, what happens to Kylan if we don't secure a parachain slot? So this is a great question because I hear it a lot, and parachains are admittedly complicated. It sounds as if there's a big FOMO of, oh my gosh, what happens if we're not first or second? There's 100 parachains and maybe a couple dozen projects that are actually in a position to launch a parachain as of right now. On top of that, it's something where, as we're studying the I guess the movement of other projects, on top of that, the hundreds of thousands of DOT that we have already committed, it's something where the numbers just add up to where it's really not a concern. What we do see as a risk and what we see as a probability is maybe we want to target a certain parachain auction date, and we don't win it for get pushed back by a couple weeks or a month. It's a minor inconvenience in the way that we see it. While on top of that, the main priority is the services that we provide on the network. What solutions are we making? We talk a lot about oracles, and pretty soon, as now that Sam has been able to put all those pieces together and innovate within the Polkadot ecosystem, we can start seeing true Generation 2 Oracle networks and various other Gen 2 data solutions. So it's something where, it's something that whenever it comes to what happens if we don't secure a slot, it's very difficult not to, besides this literally not trying after a couple months. The Kusama auctions went from 400,000 to less than 20,000. Like, it's a depreciating curve. All right, so
can I jump onto that?
Yeah, please.
Just as so like one way to think about this is when we started, or maybe 2 or 3 months after we had done our TG, this is March the 5th. And there were like maybe 5, 6 projects that wanted to be Polkadot oracles, and none of them are around.
Yeah,
as far as I know. No offense to you if you're in one of those projects, but so I think we have corralled this narrative of in terms of market awareness. Like, this is part of the sort of like picture of hey, are we going to be able to get a parachain? Well, if we satisfy the functions, like you say, Andy, of a Gen 2 Oracle, in addition to these other things that are really, really interesting, that I'd actually love Sam to maybe jump on a little bit about, this idea that I've been stressing a million times over about how, we have this innovative kind of like graph-like product market fit, and then also thinking about the DData marketplaces too. So we're hitting all these like sort of, it's like Kylan is trying to become a data blockchain on using like Polkadot, right? And so to the extent that no other project on Polkadot, is occupying these positions, especially simultaneously, I think that like, I don't want to say it's a non-zero like a chance that we don't get a parachain, but it's like really close to zero in my opinion. And I think we've definitely made the right strategic choice in waiting, like you said, in terms of it's got depreciation of resources that you need to get involved in one. Why not spend those resources in other ways? So yeah, that's it. I just wanted to jump on that and say, like parachains, we got this, but it will take time.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I want to say is like, it's not happening tomorrow. It's going to take a few months to get to Polkadot parachains, especially Kusama much closer.
Yeah, I think the fact that we were able to save and query data, any data, right? The graph and Chainlink, they're both very, very dedicated and very specialized on a certain thing. And what we're doing is very general. We can save any data. So anything you can do with data, any innovation you can build out of data sets, you can use Kylan for. So the opportunity and the potential for growth is amazing. It's really as big as our community's imagination. right? And I think really what's missing here for people to really understand the scope or the growth is the marketplace, where people come in and say, look, we want this particular data set and we want it in this particular specification or payload, and then having all our community being able to just run up simple APIs to return this data. That's when you like, okay, that's the light bulb moment. That's when you realize, hang on, how big this can get, right? Right now, all that's been done is the engine, and we can't really see the outside of it, right? Because you're like, okay, this car is still covered with a blanket, but the engine's there. All we need to do is the exterior now, which is what the marketplace will be in, because the marketplace is literally just calling the data saved in the blockchain.
That is a great analogy, like excellent analogy. And Andy, you should remember that.
Yes. I'm like, I hope that the creative team is watching. We'll have to visualize it. So yeah, it's something where that actually segues perfectly into the next question, which I think would be fun to pass around. So Dylan, I think you should start, given that you founded this. The question is, please explain what Kylan does and why it's important for the future of Polkadot.
So Kylan satisfies a few functions, right? Kind of simultaneously. One is this idea of like data feeding above and beyond. So when we started, we were just like, Oracle meant price feeding for DeFi. That's like what Oracle meant. We had to create a new, it's a neologism. We had to create DData, right? Which is decentralized data feeding. And this means above and beyond just price feeding for DeFi. Now, price feeding for DeFi is really, it's a tidy use case because it's publicly, it's public, and it's, sits as this sort of like discrete quanta of data that you can push in. But we should really not be limited thinking about what data feeding could be by restricting it to the financial use case, or just even the use case of asset prices and price feeding. Although that's something that we can certainly satisfy within the Kylan architecture. Like Sam was saying, a key difference between us and any other project, including Chainlink, Ocean Protocol to some extent, but the graph too, is that there's no, like, the sandbox is much more open in Kylan, in the sense that you can kind of come in and create the parameters of what you want to feed, like what type of data you'd like to feed, whereas it's a little bit more of a closed sandbox with these other projects. I think that is sort of the leverage that Kylan has in terms of future proofing itself, that that we can't really put a value on what if we do our jobs correctly as team members and collaborators, with the community and with the project itself, eventually the project has its like own momentum, and we kind of like sit in symbiosis with it. It's like Ethereum, right? Where there's the Ethereum Foundation, and there was the initial like group of dudes, and it built it out over like, it was like 3 or 4 years before like the eventual value of like creating this sort of virtuous ecosystem where it's a little bit open. People can come in, they can start coding, they can start creating smart contracts, et cetera, et cetera. There's a ton of value that we just will never know right now that will come out of having this sort of openness to being able to create different Oracle scripting parameters, for example, but also what APIs, that you can use in your imagination that you want to call. And that's, I think, this like key kind of difference between our projects or between our project and other projects. And then, like, we've got this really extremely innovative fertile ground to build on, which is we're building in Substrate and Polkadot, which is an L0. It's not an L1. There's a big difference here. So, do we know like in 2 years that Polkadot's going to become the multi-chain hub for every chain, and everything is working efficiently and beautifully, and we're going to be connected to everything, and we don't know that, but we're heartened by and confident within the technology underpinning that. What the market does with Polkadot, in the next 2 years, or with our project, who knows? But what we can focus on as a community and as builders of the project and collaborators with the project is popularizing the notion that individuals and projects should find more efficiencies in how they operationalize and monetize their data, right? And part of that picture is building this infrastructure. And that, we should all think about data in a very different way than we have in the past 10 years, right? We've been thinking about data in like caveman way, in my opinion. And it's like data, I will get good software. I'll get, connections with my friends, and and I don't care. It's a very myopic kind of understanding of how revolutionary this new sense of owning our data, sharing our data, finding new efficiencies with how data is consumed and bought, really. And I think that's like the overall answer. And I'm excited as well for, sort of the third bucket, along with feeding, data querying and warehousing, and also the third bucket, which is, D-data marketplaces, where we still have ground to cover technically in building that out. But I think if we do it in the right way, then we'll be cracking a pretty big nut. And I think, these are all worthy directions and things to focus on, and good parts of the project.
Perfect. I love hearing the way that you describe Kylan. I've been here for a while, and I still learn new possibilities of it every single time I hear you speak. Sam, what would be your take on this question? It's remind you what Kylan does and why it's important for the future of Polkadot.
Really, for me, the value of data as a data engineer is it helps you understand your customer. And in the Polkadot ecosystem, the customer is the person using the blockchain. All blockchains have a form of customers, right? People want to swap, people who want to buy the token, people want to use it to utility. And that's where the value comes into play, trying to understand all those interactions. There's trillions of dollars in Kusama, and Pichu will be dedicated to extracting that data out, visualizing it, and giving it to people who find value in that. And that's what we're trying to do. That's just literally only Kusama, right? The applications to what data can be used for worldwide is just immense. I don't know what the potential is, and I don't think any of us is. This thing will evolve as we evolve into a DAO. But yeah, it's just really exciting.
Brilliant. And I guess I'll finish this off last. Is I guess the example of what Kylan does and why it's important for the ecosystem. It's I used a metaphor of data is the new oil. Kind of true in the sense that it's a resource that's pretty readily available, but kind of a pain to extract. And once you do, you have to get it from point A to point B, and then it must be refined before delivered. But the difference, that's a very, very distinct, important difference, is that we light oil on fire to get value from it, at which point it's no longer useful. While with data, once a person has refined and used data, it then has a value of its own. So if somebody were to collect a bunch of, I don't know, again, e-commerce background, so I think about the movement of products, and they can see that a certain type of handbag is selling in one community more than another community. Well, that data point just became valuable for an advertiser, which then when they run ads, that now creates another data point that can be used to be able to find better ads to run, which there's another data point on which designer to hire for those ads. That makes the point is data is able to expand at a compounding rate in value. And so what we do at Kylan is, while the data is typically locked up, I mean, the gates of Facebook and Google and Amazon are very tall, and that data is pretty much the opposite of decentralized. Well, if there's an environment or a way that a person could take the data that they're already taking the time to process and anonymize and secure and analyze, and profit on it more. So as a business, if they're already spending money on IT services, cloud services, hopefully data analysts, if not, they're probably going to get taken over by the more data-centric companies of the space. But the point is, data is expensive to get. And so when people application builders and networks are able to better utilize that data, it creates an exponentially increasing impact in terms of value creation. And we get paid on every single query fee that happens through it, which is why we're looking for developers, because when a developer builds the Oracle for it, they get paid forever off of it. So it's something where it's an exciting system for the entire ecosystem and beyond. I guess for Polkadot, why that's important is because it connects all the blockchains. So right now it's Ethereum and a couple others, but at some point, anybody can connect the bridge to the other chains, at which point that data is flowing inside. And who's excited to analyze all data on all blockchains in a user-friendly way? That's us, but it's like Google of blockchain, but plus. Yes, Dylan.
No, I'm just saying, me, I'm excited.
Perfect. Well, hey, everybody, we are coming up on the hour mark. Dylan, Sam, thank you guys so much for joining us here live with the community, and everybody who's taking the time. We have, I think I saw 60 plus people at one point, on this live. I can't thank you guys enough for taking time out of your mornings, evenings,
Thank you.
Afternoons, whatever it may be for you. And well,
All right,
until next
so
time,
much.
y'all.
Take care.
Bye for now.